Welcome to episode 6. We are already at the end, and this is the last episode where we'll finish everything, and you should have everything rendered out by now, so we can do another very important step, the whole post-processing. But before that, I just want to quickly show how I made these 3 variations with the sand, the snow, and the fire, and yes, just to inspire you how you can vary your own animation and create your own unique style and your own unique animation in the end after the course. So for these variations, you can really go crazy. You can change so many things. So I tried to create like a big variation with just a few small changes. So it's not really much work to do. So that was like my goal for it. But of course you can like go even further and change the building and everything. So first of all, I want to give you a quick overview on how I created the sand variation, like this desert one. First of all, I hid all the clouds because they didn't fit the theme. Then I just scaled the cube and gave it a principal volume material to create some fog, and I turned the density down. Then I tinted it orange to get like this Blade Runner desert effect, and I added a gradient texture to make it more dense at the bottom. For inspiration, as I already told, I took this desert scene from Blade Runner. Then I added a quick particle system to simulate some sand and dirt flying around, and with that it already looked way different. Then for the snow landscape, I also hid the clouds, and I used a simple geometry setup to create some snow on top of the building. I attached a YouTube tutorial which I used, so you can replicate it if you want. Then I also added some white fog and another snow particle system with low gravity and some wind and turbulence to simulate some snow. I also added in some free assets like some ice walls and a mountain in the back. So yes, and with that we also had the snow variation. The last one I did is the fire one. For that I turned the HDRI strength down so it's night, and I added some fire VDBs I created myself in EmberGen. For that you can also use your own VDBs, but I also put the VDB sequence I used into the asset file, so you can also append the explosion and fire collection from the asset file there, that you can use it in your own scene too if you want to. So that's another asset you can use for free. And yes, I really want to encourage you to create your own variation, maybe add some trees and grass everywhere, make it a green landscape, or make it a cyberpunk night city by adding some neon lights. So yeah, there are really thousands of options, so just try to come up with your own creative ideas. Now let's get to the post-processing. Import your footage into a compositing or editing software of your choice. I will use After Effects, but if you don't have that, feel free to follow along with your own editing tool. I won't make really complex stuff and focus more on the principles behind it, so it doesn't really matter if you're following along in After Effects or use a free alternative. Let's import our PNG sequence by double-clicking right here and then select PNG and click on the PNG sequence. Make sure it imports with 24 FPS. If not, you can change it by right-clicking on it and click on Interpreting Footage and then Media and then change it here. Then drag the clip on top of this icon to create a composition. Bring in the first shot the same way and drag the second a little bit back, so we have first the first shot and then it cuts to the second shot. Let's also change the composition length because it just took the first clip, and because we now have 2 clips we want to make it a little bit longer, and let's set it to 8 seconds. Okay, just trim the last few frames of the first shot and the first few frames of the second shot so they just match better together, and let's play it back and see if our cut works. Okay, next let's add an adjustment layer by right clicking and then under new add the adjustment layer. Let's add a grain effect and a lumetric color effect. In the grain, select final output and decrease the intensity to 0.25 and the size to 0.5. Then in the lumetric color effect, I just want to do some color grading, and this also really depends on your taste. So you can choose your own values, but I show you what I did. I turned the exposure up a bit and also the highlights and shadows and whites. Then I added a vignette of -3 to bring the focus more to the middle and away from the corners. I also like to add a Gaussian blur with 2 on top, which just gives it a little bit more of a realistic feels, because CGI renders can just look too sharp and too perfect, and we want like this realistic camera feel. Then add the CC lens effect to give it some artificial lens distortion, and turn the signs to 500 and the convergence to 50. I also use this quick chromatic aberration effect to give it some chromatic aberration. I also attach the download link to this effect. What I like to do next is to add some lens dirt. For that, select both shots and pre-compose them. Let's call it footage. Then duplicate them with Ctrl D and pre-compose the top again and call it lens dirt. For that, I use some free lens dirt textures from Action VFX. I also attach the download link. Import one or two of your desired lens dirt textures and drag them into the timeline. Then on the top footage, add a lumetri color and turn the saturation to 50. And after that, in the curve, grab the bottom pin and drag it over until the bright parts are visible. And do the same for the top, so we really only have the bright spot. Then add a box blur and blur it. Use the footage layer now as a mask for the lens dirt. Do the same for the second texture. Now back in the main composition, change the blending mode to screen, and here you go. You can also add a brightness node and make it more visible and brighter. If you want to get rid of certain colors, you can just go to the adjustment layer and under the HSL secondary select the color you want. Adjust the selection with the sliders and blur it a bit. Then under correction, turn down the saturation. This can help to guide it further and really art direct what kind of color you want to have in there, or if you forgot to take out a certain color in the render and it just like disturbs the final image or the final look. Now we can also add some overlay, like a slight fog overlay or whatever, but I will keep it as it is. Next, let's import our light trace layer the same way we did before, the other, like the footage, and put it on top right beneath the adjustment layer. Now let's just align it with the second shot, and also if you want, you can also, like if you render it out for the first shot too, do the same for the first shot. And then let's just switch the blending mode to screen, and it should already work, and it also should already be masked because we had like these holdout buildings in front of it. So yes, then you can also like adjust the brightness or the opacity here to make them more, to give them more strength or less strength. And yes, that's basically it. So let's send it to Adobe Media Encoder and render it out. And yes, with that, we are finished with our animation. You can also download the finished project file that I created in case you want to take a look at stuff that I did, and I also uploaded project files of the variation. And yes, feel free to use them. And with that, we're already at the end, but we have one more episode, like the last episode. In that, I will just talk a little bit about my journey and how I got into 3D, and especially like on the business part, like how I made my first money and how I attracted my first client. And I will also give some tips to you how you can attract your first client too. And yes, I will just talk about it for a few minutes, and yes, make sure to watch that too if you're interested in that. And yes, with that, thank you so much for taking my course, for buying it and just investing time, and I hope you could learn many new things. And also make sure to, if you upload the animation on YouTube or Instagram, make sure to tag me, and yes, then I will definitely repost it and share it to my followers so they can see what you created. And yes, thank you so much for tuning in, and I wish you all a great week, and yes, see you in the next and last episode.